afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Todd Clint's SharePoint podcast, starring me, this guy, Todd Clint. I am the star of the Todd Clint SharePoint podcast, right here, this guy. I am the face of the Todd Clint SharePoint podcast. But because of some legal issues and all that, I've had to take, help. So I got that guy. Shane, tell him who you are.
Hello, my name is Shane Young. I am not wearing a blue shirt, and I might not be the star of the Todd Clint show, but I am the smart one, the good-looking one, and the funny one. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
And the deluded one, the confused one. So if you want to contact me, you can hit me up. I'm Todd at toddclint.com with the email. I'm at Todd Clint everywhere else on the internet. I did schedule a thing. We'll talk about this. Oh, excuse me, a little more in the topic section. I scheduled a massage yesterday at a place, and there were two Todd Clints. Because I'm like, hey, I'm Todd Clint. And they're like, hey, is your last four of your phone number still, 867-5309? And I'm like, nope. And they're like, oh, is it? And then they rattled mine off, and I'm like, yep. And they're like, there's two of you. I'm like, there's another Todd Clint out there. That guy sounds awesome.
That's just weird.
So Shane Young, are there any more Shane Youngs out there?
No, I'm the only one, so that's why I go by the Twitter handle of @Shane'sCals, just to make sure that I want to leave that Shane Young spot open for anyone that might come along the internet later if this fad stays true.
In the unlikely event that there should be another Shane Young somewhere.
Yeah. And then there's the old Shane.Young at boldzebras.com. Right, those guys, you can't see them today because of I'm too lazy to stand up, so I'm having a sitting day. I'm doing a sit-in on the show.
Sitting for I'm offended. Anyway, so you got to leave here in 28 minutes, so we got to plod on through. Let's move to the production notes. Everything's caught up from last week, I think. And but we did want to talk a little bit about the naming. Would you like to tell the folks about our naming ideas?
Yeah, we are still moving forward on Cloudy with a Chance of podcast. We have tried to come up with something better, wittier, happier going. It just that's as good as we've gotten.
Yeah.
So with that, though, we've had some challenges, and you guys can always feel free to chime in on this. But it looks like clearly Cloudy with a Chance of podcast is too long of a Twitter handle because Twitter handles can only be 15 characters, which has messed us up a couple times.
How many times are we gonna fall for that?
I know. So we're going to be a Cloudy podcast on Twitter and all the different social medias. You got @Todd Clint everywhere. We're going to be @a Cloudy podcast. So I don't know. If you have strong feedback that would be a train wreck of us to have a different name and Twitter handle, well, provide the feedback. We're not going to listen.
More of a train wreck than this one. It will be a train wreck. It's just, yes, more or less of a train wreck.
You mean the Todd Clint Netcast is not a good name for our podcast of the two of us? Is that what you mean?
No, I think it's a fine name. Any podcast would be proud to have that name, but you've been voicing your opinion. So yeah, we have, as far as I know, we have snagged up all of the A Cloudy podcast handles everywhere that we see fit, and we'll be starting to make that move over. One of the things that we want to talk to you folks about, the viewers out there, is we need some new avatars and things like that, album art for podcasting, things like that. We will probably go someplace like Fiverr and have some of those kind of things, sketched out for us. But we thought if any of you guys out there are artistically inclined, we've got an idea what we want it to look like. But if anybody wanted to submit something, we would love to have some kind of viewer submission on what that looks like. So if you're curious about helping us out with that, I can tell you that there is exactly no money involved, probably, but fame, fortune, admiration, hugs every time I see it. Those are really what your payment will be. But if it's something you're interested in, reach out to either one of us again at Todd Clint, todd@toddclint.com. Whoever that guy is, I forget already. Reach out to either one of us, and we'll kind of give you an idea what we've got in mind.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking it through for that poor person, right? They're thinking, I'm the greatest artist in the world. I could do this for these guys. But every time there's audio issues, they're going to be like, well, if so-and-so had just done a better job at drawing the album art, we wouldn't be having these audio issues. So look forward to being blamed for a lot of things if you're silly enough to volunteer to help us out as well.
Yeah, because we'll give you a fancy title, but then with that comes a lot of blame.
Yes.
Yep.
So also we're going to talk about maybe a new time. Well, definitely a new time.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about.
Well, so in the in the attempt to make everything as disruptive as humanly possible, we thought, it's not enough that we're going to change the name and all that kind of stuff, but we would also change the time too. So right now, we currently record this live Monday afternoons at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And we're thinking about moving it because this is a little tough for Shane. And we were thinking about moving it to Tuesday mornings at 11 a.m. noon Eastern. So we're kind of kicking that around. Let us know, good, bad, or otherwise, what you think about that.
That's, and if it's for some reason that's a terrible time for the whole internet, maybe we'll agree. But I don't know. It's just we're trying to get it into a time zone where I don't have to go to kids' basketball practice and Chick-fil-A before the end of every show. So that way we can really just, rock on. Dave, I think it would be straight up noon UTC, right?
No,
because we're
he's in the UK. So if it's 11 o'clock, it'd be 5.
Oh, that's right. The other way.
Yeah, you're an idiot. Yeah, it'd be like 5 or 6 p.m. Or 1500. 1700 or 1800.
Yeah, 1700. I think you're right. Oh, there you go. And Dave's already drawing us album art. There it is. We're done.
Yep. So we have a very distinct idea what we want. We're just neither one of us are capable of creating it. So that's the issue. But we'll talk more about that. We're kind of working towards all of that. But let us know, good, bad, or otherwise, what you think about that time. All right, so we'll get into the topics. Again, we're going to kind of plow through those because we got Shane having to step out at half past. The first thing that I wanted to make sure everybody knew, in case there's any confusion, is I ran my marathon yesterday and I did not die. So we got that going for me. My very first marathon, wasn't sure what to expect. Turns out it's a really long ways. I mean, it just kept going and going and going. Oh, my goodness. But did finish it. So it was the IMT Des Moines Marathon. I live just north of Des Moines. Ran that. And for my first one, I ran it in 3 hours, 52 minutes, and 28 seconds and some change. I forget. But, yeah.
That's a pretty impressive time, right? Sub 400 is a lot of people's, goal for like years of doing marathons. The fact you busted out less than 4 hours on try one is... as much as I hate to say it, kudos to you.
I know it does pain you physically to compliment me. I do appreciate that. So yeah, it wasn't bad, and I'm doing fine today. Starting to regret that decision to buy a 2-story house. This afternoon, before the podcast, I went upstairs, made myself a little cappuccino. Maybe the first time in the last 24 hours that I've gone upstairs without crying. So we're getting better with that. My legs are a little sore, but other than that, it wasn't too bad. So I will do it again. It's a good time.
Every time I do that type of stuff, it's my feet usually end up getting torn up. It's my poor little tootsies are just like, wah, wah.
Little tenderfoot over there.
I am a tenderfoot yeah.
So I didn't have any problems with that. I've done some distance runs, and I get blisters in a couple places, so I just put Band-Aids on ahead of time. And I tell you, yesterday was an outstanding Fitbit day. Set a one-day record on Fitbit. I wish I'd have noticed it earlier. I was just shy of 45,000 steps. I was like 4,400, 850 or something.
Oh, the OCD in me, that would have been tough.
I didn't notice it until last night at bedtime, and there was no way I was going to spend, 10 minutes or whatever it was. I can't remember. But yeah. And plus, that gives me an opportunity now to get 45,000 at some point and hit it. But good time. Recommend it. So another good thing that happened yesterday that we need to get out of the way is I was watching Twitter, and I follow a guy on Twitter, Rhett Reese. He's a producer. He's done some really crappy shows like Joe Schmo and things like that. He also did an even crappier show called Invasion Iowa 15 years ago, a thing that William
Sounds
Shatner
terrible.
did. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But it took place in my home state here. But he is also working on a little movie that I like to call Deadpool 2. And yesterday, Rhett Reese tweeted that Deadpool 2 is in the can. I couldn't be more excited. I'm holding it in, but Deadpool 2 is in the can.
I'm very excited for you that Deadpool 2 is made in the can, and now we're going to take a little segue here. We'll off the chart here, but so you remember, the way I saw Deadpool 1, right? I'd heard it was a great movie, and someone named Todd Quint forced me to watch it at like midnight at a conference.
You wouldn't do it. I begged you for weeks and all that day.
Yep. So watch it, right? And the whole time I'm watching it, right, Todd's just like, oh my God, do you love that? Do you love that? Do you love that? And so I I had to play along. I had to be like, yes, Todd, that was the best movie I've ever seen. I humored you, because it was okay for me. I really thought Deadpool was meh, but I couldn't tell you at the time. So then you did the same thing with Chips,
yes.
right? And so at Ignite, same type of deal. Todd, said, hey, nope, we're not doing anything else. We're going to sit here and watch this. And Chips was amazing. I was like, this is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. So now that you've got a great movie, I feel like I can finally tell you how I didn't care for Deadpool at all. I mean, it was fine, but it wasn't, I don't know. Deadpool, I think, just got overhyped for me. And so Chips did not have that chance. And so when I watched Chips, that was amazing.
Yeah, and I think when I described Chips to you, I think I begrudgingly called it like this decade's Super Troopers, I think was how I referred to it. And I feel like that's fairly accurate. It's a dumb, brain-dead, hysterical movie.
Yeah, I mean, the one part when he's helping him out of the bathtub and mouthed, that was comedy gold right there.
Yeah. So Chips, I highly recommend it. I've seen it like 3 times. I would love to watch it again. And but it is not for children. If you are easily offended or even moderately easily offended, you may want to have a safe word ready for whoever's manning the controls. But hysterical movie. Yeah.
All right. So we're not doing movie reviews. So what's number topic C?
So this was a discussion that Brad Sams and I had last week, and I just wanted to bring this up because Brad's a fairly technical guy, and this was something that he hadn't had yet. But for people that watch this show, they might come across this. He was someplace with, public internet, like at a hotel or a bar or something, and he couldn't get signed in. He couldn't figure out how to sign in. Like, he attached to their Wi-Fi, was trying to get to the page where he got to sign in, and he just couldn't do it. And so he got out on Twitter and asked about it. And I said, well, are you bringing up a web page that's got HTTPS in it, like Google or Bing or something? And that was exactly it. So what he was experiencing was the screen that you're trying to get to it's called a captive portal. And that's the thing where you say, I agree to not upload pornographic pictures or something, whatever. But he couldn't get that screen to pop up when he opened his browser up because his browser had an HTTPS protected homepage. And he couldn't get to the internet to get that page, and the captive portal couldn't intercept that because it was HTTPS and it was encrypted. So he was stuck. So he just had to go to anything that was HTTP, and then the captive portal software would kick in, and he would get his thing, and it would all be good. So that's what he did. And he got it. So then somebody else found was eavesdropping on our very private, intimate conversation. And he actually had this problem so many times that he bought the URL captivessuck.com or captivesuck.com. Wow. And it is HTTP. And so that's where he goes when he needs to find this captive portal. So you don't have to go to captivesuck.com. You just have to go to anything that's HTTP, not HTTPS, and then you'll get that captive portal and be able to sign in. So
that is so fraught with things that I'd like to add that I'm not going to add. So I'm just going to say,
can't do it.
Good to know.
When I publish this podcast, I always check in iTunes, not explicit. So
there you go.
Got to do the thing.
So I think keeping on the theme of connecting to things, you posted a blog post somebody released, I think, out on not Codeplex, but wherever we put stuff now. We don't put things on Codeplex.
Got.net or
one of those. But script to connect to Office 365 and Exchange, and it looks like he kind of went out and made a PowerShell module. Well, it's not a module though; it's a script that'll run. It finds all the different installers that you might need. It puts them on for you, and then it gives you kind of push button access to connecting to all the different Office 365 services and such. So it seemed like a pretty convenient little friendly thing to offer to the world.
Yeah, and I think I think this was an iteration on that script because it's been out a couple of years, and I think we've actually referenced it in our Office 365 and PowerShell talk. But he's been keeping up with all the different module name changes and all that. But if you go to 8W1, all spelled out, EIGHTWONE.com. That's the guy's blog. And of course, it'll be in the show notes and all that. But yeah, this is a great script if you're doing SharePoint online and Exchange online and all of the things, Skype for Business. It's one script, takes your credentials and just poof, logs you into everything. And that's pretty sweet because that's always a problem trying to figure out what to get logged into and all that. So I was happy to send that out to somebody.
Yeah. That's and it's the password, right? It's always one of the toughest parts. I did my session on Saturday at a SharePoint Saturday Cincinnati on PowerShell and SharePoint. They put it in a developer track, so a bunch of devs in there looking at my awful PowerShell. I'm like, yep, you can leave because I don't know what to tell you. This is what Shane's got.
Yep.
But yeah, that's always one of the things, right? Is the challenge of the passwords and making sure that it's all in there and good stuff. So
Yeah. Yep. So hats off to that guy. I would try to pronounce his name, but I would just embarrass myself and offend him, so I will not do that. But again, EIGHTWONE.com. Again, it's in the show notes. So Chris Webb brings up good luck using that with two-factor accounts. A bunch of the PowerShell commandlets now support that. And you can also get app passwords and things like that. So I have not used his script specifically against an account that's got multi-factor auth, but it is doable with PowerShell.
Yeah, I keep meaning to do that. Go into one of my tenants and turn on two-factor auth just to see how much of the PowerShell stuff that I do, like the PnP stuff and things like that. How does two-factor really factor in there?
Yeah. Factor. It makes it tougher, but it's the way we're going to go. So that will work. All right. So in no particular order, I did want to call out. So today is Monday, October 16th. That makes tomorrow Tuesday, October 17th. And that's the big day that Microsoft has been saying for a while, that the fall creators update, also known as Redstone 3, also known as build something, I forget what the numbers are, will start rolling out to folks. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the things that show up in that build. Really, the only reason I'm mentioning it in the podcast is sort of as a PSA that starting tonight, start saving your files early and often, because there's a good chance at some point in the next week your Windows 10 box is just going to up and reboot on you, and you don't want to lose anything. So know that's coming out, and start saving appropriately and being ready for a random reboot at some point.
Yeah, one of the speakers at SharePoint Cincy had that exact problem. I guess he's on one of the faster rings, and apparently it rolled out Saturday.
Yeah.
And
he clicked the update like 3 hours before his session. He started his session 5 minutes late. That's how long it took to update.
Yeah, it's so I think all of my and the other thing they mentioned at Ignite was they don't call it first ring anymore. Now it's called targeted release. I forget. But yeah, I think I've got all of my boxes on that. So mine's actually been running it for a while, so I've kind of lost track of what shows up in that and what doesn't, because I've had it for a couple of months now.
Man, I think I got off of the fast. I used to be on the fast rings for the phone, but I think I got out of the fast rings for all my devices because just too much pandemonium.
Well, and yeah, so not only do you end up having software that potentially is not ready for prime time yet, but you end up getting updates more quickly, so you get more of those random reboots. So they'll push something out on a Wednesday, and you'll have to reboot, and everything will be different, and then they'll realize it's got a problem, so then Thursday they'll push out a fix, and you get more updates and installs. So you definitely have to be wise about it.
Oh, and that reminds me. So, last week I was out because at a customer site doing some work for them, and they are a very secure environment to their own demise, quite frankly. Yeah. But the laptop that they gave me, it just keeps installing updates. I mean, I'll be working and it's not a fast laptop to begin with. And it'll be like, oh, I got to put the update on right now. I'm like, but you just did that an hour ago. And it'll just grind to a halt. And there's no fighting it. There's no delaying it. IT said you must have this update. I'm looking around the rest of the office like, everyone, what did I do? Yeah. It's been a real challenge to do any work for these guys, just because the equipment that they've given me to work with just updates. So I just watch updates install for money. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm working with a customer now, and I'm setting up a couple different SharePoint farms for them, but it's 15 servers total, and so their team sets up all the VMs, and I've spent like a day. Windows update here, Windows update there, because and these images are probably not old, but Patch Tuesday was last Tuesday, so if they're more than a few days old, they get all that kind of stuff, and then some of the patches open up some of the other patches, and then I ran the prereq installer everywhere, and a couple of those things had patches, and so it's just been,
yeah. Well, that's. I'm also very curious. The being the environment they're also. So I have an email account with them, and so I show up in their AD. And it's now started, hey, you haven't done this compliance training. It's like every hour I get emailed about it. I'm like, do you guys really want me to spend 8 hours watching these videos? I mean, I will. No problem. But it just doesn't sound like a good use of your money.
Yeah.
So far they've said, until they revoke your access, don't watch them. But I'm like, it's sometimes, the automated processes get in the way of the processes.
Yep. So another thing that I did last week was started playing with Teams a little bit.
Oh.
Had an occasion to do that, and mainly just played with the guest access. So Teams is very much an internal IT thing, or an internal, for people. So I can't remember how Dan Holm did it at Ignite, but like the inner ring of communication and the outer ring, Yammer was the outer ring, Teams was the inner ring. But basically, people inside of your organization is what they're positioning Teams for right now. But you can add external guests as long as those guests are in Azure AD somewhere. And so I was added to another team and started experiencing some weirdness for that. So I decided to add some people to one of my teams to kind of see what both sides of the picture look like. All you need is their email address. So like I added you to a team. I just needed your email address. It automatically found you in the massive Azure AD gal in the sky. Couple of weird things about it though. When it brings the external guest name in, it just grabs their first name and then says parenthesis guest. So you showed up as Shane parenthesis guest. And that kind of stunk because I had a couple of people that had the same name, so it got very confusing. So what I missed was when you add somebody the first time to your tenant as a guest, only the first time, when I do the search, there's a little pencil between your name and the little X that you click. There's a pencil, and then you can type in a name. So I was able to type in Shane Young. If you miss that and you add somebody, you have a couple of options. You can remove them from your team. You can go into Azure AD, so portal.azure.com, blah, blah, blah. Remove them, re-add them, you get the pencil again. But you can also go into Azure AD and find them as a guest and edit their name there. And then eventually it will trickle down into Teams. So that was one thing that I was able to do. And I was also able to, in Azure AD, add title, I think, or something that would show up. But one thing that I couldn't do is add a picture. So for people in my organization, it pulls the picture in, and those are all very nice. But for external guests, it doesn't pull any pictures in. I was able to add one in Azure AD, but it did not trickle down into Teams. So that was very sad. And I'm guessing that will show up eventually. I don't know, but
yeah, the whole guest concept, right? Microsoft's trying like crazy to get it right, and they'll eventually figure it all out. But was one of the startups I work with, they were trying to add to their SharePoint. They created a SharePoint group site, or what do you call it? Office 365 groups. I don't even know. It's whatever they call those things. They added one of those, and so they were kind of building it out, and they wanted to add users. And so the first external user he added was me, the same as you did. Apparently, I'm the first on the
you were not my
guest
first.
Everyone adds.
You were one of my first. You were not my first.
Oh, I was your first. You know it.
8th, 9th, maybe.
But so with the guest stuff, the gal in the sky, as you called it earlier, it found my Cincy Shane, right? My Hotmail address shows up in that gal, so it was easy for him to add me. I got the email, I clicked on the link, I was in. Then he added someone that didn't have an Azure AD account already, and he had a real hard time with that experience, right? Because they get the link, and then they go to the link, then they have to create an account, but it's not really obvious. They're just like, they send you the create a Microsoft account, but you're like, but I'm just trying to get to this guy's website. And so there's a little confusion there. And then he had, because he had so many accounts like the rest of us, right? I mean, I've got 25 Microsoft accounts at this point, I think. He couldn't figure out what browser he was logged in as, that user as, so he couldn't tell if they had access. I'm like, how to get on a call with him, like, all right, we're going to do this baby steps. And it all works in the end, but it's really confusing and off-putting still.
Yeah, and we don't have time today, but sometime we should talk about that whole, what do you do when you have a bunch of different accounts, how to handle that, the incognito and private mode thing. We should talk about that again sometime, because that just keeps coming up. It keeps rearing its ugly head. So maybe we'll put that on for next week when we've got more time.
All right. You want to jump to H since we've only got 5 minutes?
Yeah. So the big news today for all of us tech folks is that Wi-Fi, or one of the Wi-Fi encryption protocols, WPA, has been cracked, apparently, with an appropriately sounding name called KRACK, KRACK, which is a short name for Key Reinstallation Attack, KRACK. So what this is, and I'm not a security expert, all of us have to do security as our job, which is why I bring this up. But I'm not a security expert. But essentially what this is some guy found a way inside of the, up until this weekend, bulletproof WPA2 wireless protocol to talk a client into reusing a known key. And then once that happens, it and the attacker can sync up and the attacker can decrypt packets that device sends, essentially, since it's using it knows the sequence of that. Again, that's a horrible explanation, and anybody who knows about it's probably cringing right now. But it allows a malicious device to, again, read packets that this particular client does. And there's also a way for them to insert things into HTTP packets with that. So now think malware, things like that. So the first thing, anytime something like this comes up, the first thing people ask is, I wonder if I'm affected. The answer is absolutely yes, because every single WPA2 device on the planet until 24 hours ago was impacted by this. And it's both sides of the equation. It's the wireless client and the wireless router. The good news is, as long as you get one of them patched, it negates this thing. It negates this ability for a malicious device to reuse a key, grab the nonce, and all that kind of stuff. And it impacts WPA, WPA2, home WPA, enterprise WPA, any of that kind of stuff. It's all impacted by this particular problem. So what you need to do, if you're on Windows 8 or later, all those patches we were just complaining about 10 minutes ago, install them all, because Windows is patched against this. So that will protect all of the traffic between your Windows box and the wireless access point. And as we speak now, companies all over the globe are updating their pieces of the puzzle. So start looking for those updates and all that. So Dave Aykroyd in the chat room saying, this doesn't matter for me. I'm running WEP. This is true. The other thing is, if you don't have any encryption at all, it can't be hacked. So don't forget about that. So this is a big thing. So I've got Ubiquiti wireless access points. They just released a patch like 2 hours ago. I know what I'm doing next after this. Android, iOS, everything. Now, and again, for this attack to be vulnerable to this attack, whatever the malicious device is has to be within range of your wireless network. So I live in a house in Iowa. I can see like 2 networks from my house. So somebody would have to get close. They have to be parked outside my house or something. But if you're living in a dense space somewhere, somebody could get in there potentially.
Good old FBI surveillance van out front and connecting up.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and right into your point, it's really going to be important, I think, to get the routers as soon as you can, because we know that those darn Internet of Things devices, they're the weakest links in our homes these days.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about the casino getting hacked by their aquarium because of Internet of Things. So your light bulbs are now connecting to your WEP using your WEP key, or your WAP key, WPA key, whatever key it is, and sending that stuff and being wide open. So yeah, you guys, you gotta start patching early and often, because your computer's good, but your network's only as good as your weakest link, and that fancy light bulb you got that blinks yellow and green when somebody tweets you is your ingress point.
Yeah. And this one isn't, from what I understand, this one isn't as bad as some of the other ones have been. But the problem is, up until now, everybody thought that WPA2 was rock solid. Like, if you had WPA2, you're done, you're safe. There's just no other worries. And that's not the case now. So from you and I are SharePoint guys and all that, to bring this into relevance for that, something I've been telling customers for a couple of years now is everything should be HTTPS. Internal, external, everything should be HTTPS. And this right here is one of the reasons, because while this can jump into HTTP packets, if you're doing HTTPS, no matter what the bad guys do with this WAP2 exploit, any traffic you've got over HTTPS, they can't touch, because they don't have those kind of keys. They don't have any of that kind of stuff. It's all safe. So I'm at the point now where I believe internal traffic should also be HTTPS and all of that.
There you go. And I'm at the point where I believe we should do shameless promotions.
Yes. So here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be in beautiful Slovenia for the Thrive Conference. You can find out more about that at thethriveconf.com. That is, or .com. That is in Slovenia, November 8th and the 9th. So please join me there. Beautiful conference. Great conference. I've gone there 1 year before and and really loved it. What's after that?
Yep. Then December 5th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, I'll be doing the SharePoint Southern California the PowerShell for Southern California. Too many S's. I will be in a PowerShell group talking about SharePoint stuff.
Two PowerShell folks. Yes.
There you go. They'll be crying and sad faces, like who let this guy in? But hey, they let me in, so it's their fault.
Yep. And then finally, the biggest SharePoint event of 2018 was the North American SharePoint Conference, or SharePointNA.com. That is May 21st through the 23rd. I have already started sucking up to those folks so that I can get in there. I don't know what capacity that will be, but that will be the SharePoint event of the season. Everybody who's anybody will be at the SharePoint North American Conference May 21st through the 23rd in Las Vegas, Nevada. So hopefully we will see you there.
Awesome possum. Looking forward to it, hopefully.
All right. Coach, you got to get out of here. Everybody, thanks for joining along. Chat room, I'm going to stay around for a little bit while we get rid of this other guy. But for everybody else, we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.